Okay. Well, we are going to go ahead and welcome you to the webinar today. We have 1 p.m. and we'll get started. So welcome. My name is Suzanne Sluka and I'm the Division Director for Youth and 4-H at USDA Nifa. And the webinar today is brought to you on behalf of the USDA Nifa Division of Youth and 4-H, the Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights Office, and the Communications Office. This webinar will provide information on the appropriate use of the USDA logo and non-discrimination statements. We're going to have 2 main presenters today, Jessica Creighton, our Senior Equal Opportunity Specialist with the Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights Office, and Faith Peppers, USDA Nifa Director of Communications. We will also have time at the end of the session to facilitate questions that you may have. You will not have microphone access, so your questions will need to be typed into the Q&A box. You can type your question anytime throughout the webinar, and we will ensure that we get those answered. A reminder that this webinar will be recorded and it will be posted to the Nifa website. And during the presentation today, Jessica will actually show you and provide details on how you can access those recordings. It is also FAQ document using the questions that you asked during today's session and get that out as well. So be looking forward to those items too. Again, I welcome you today to the presentation, and I'm going to have us get started and turn the presentation over to Jessica.
Hello, my name is Jessica Creighton. I am a Senior Equal Opportunity Specialist with USDA at Nifa. And I've been asked to talk a little bit today about USDA's Equal Opportunity Public Notification Policy. The information in my portion of this presentation can be found at the departmental regulation that is cited on this slide. I do have the link here for when this is made available online so that you can click it. But you can also, and go through to that regulation through that link, but you can also Google this regulation number and the date that it was published, and you should be able to pull it up. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's notification requirements for recipients of federal financial assistance, such as university extension programs that receive grant funding from Nifa and their 4-H programs and youth programs, is that the recipient of federal financial assistance post the non-discrimination statement in its entirety, and that they post the non-discrimination statement that contains those protected bases mandated in applicable federal law. And those protected bases are the characteristics that federal law prohibits discrimination based on. And those are in parentheses here: race, color, national origin, sex, disability, age, and retaliation for prior civil rights activity. And the reason I have these listed here is because when you go online and you see the USDA non-discrimination statement, you may see several different versions of it. And that is because the federal law that applies to different programs mandates, has different non-discrimination mandates depending on what type of program it is. So for recipients of federal financial assistance, such as extension programs and 4-H and youth programs, like I mentioned, these are the bases that you will find on the correct non-discrimination statement. And I do have the non-discrimination statement in full in a couple of slides for you to look at. The full non-discrimination statement must be included on all print and non-print materials. So that means if you have a website, it needs to be included on your website. If you have an audio material, you need to verbally state the non-discrimination statement. A video, you should display it or state it, or both at some point during that material. If the size of the material is too small to include the full statement, the regulation, USDA regulation states that it's permissible to use this text instead of the full non-discrimination statement. So that would be a scenario if you have like a one-page event announcement, a flyer or something like that. You can use this. Note that it says the following statement should be in print in the same size as the text. So sometimes you'll see this statement significantly smaller than the rest of the text. And the regulation does state that it needs to be the same size as the text. Reminder that recipients of federal financial assistance are also required to notify individuals with disabilities and LEP individuals. LEP stands for Limited English Proficient individuals, of their right to free language assistance in the case of the limited English proficient individuals, and accommodations in the case of individuals with disabilities, and provide free language assistance and accommodations upon request. This is the full non-discrimination statement that should be used for programs that receive federal financial assistance. Like I mentioned, you might see some slightly different versions of this that have, in that first line, you'll see different versions for programs that are actually run by the U.S. Department of Agriculture as opposed to just receiving funding. And so you'll see some different versions of this that have things like religious creed, political affiliation, because there are additional laws that apply to some of those different types of programs. But this is the one you should use if you are a recipient of federal financial assistance. You'll see it has those bases that I listed earlier. You'll also see this first line says this institution is prohibited, as opposed to saying, you know, USDA is prohibited, which is what some of the other versions will say. So it does apply to your institution that's receiving financial assistance. And there is an option here, this part in purple. If you do post this on your specific or use this on your specific materials or websites, and this one part that's in purple here, if you have specific reasonable accommodation contact information for your institution, for example, an office that handles reasonable accommodations and specific contact information like a specific phone number or an email address, you can put that in there because you are the responsible state or local agency. If you have more specific information, you can add that in there. The other main piece of the equal opportunity notification requirements in this regulation have to do with the and justice for all posters. And the regulation states that the posters must be prominently displayed in all offices where there is a USDA presence and where it may be read by customers. The correct version for financially assisted programs is AD 475A. Again, if you look for this on the USDA website, you'll see several different versions for different types of programs. So the one you want is AD 475A. It is available in languages other than English. I think right now it's available in 20-something other languages. So if you have a secondary language that is very common in your service population, you may want to post a second version in that language. There is a size requirement so that the text is readable. What this basically means is that you can't just go to the website and look at what's on the website and print it out on a letter-sized piece of computer paper and tape it to your office wall. If you do need posters for displaying in your offices or whatever the case may be, you will need to reach out to Nifa civil rights staff, and we will send you however many posters you need free of charge. I have contact information for that here on the last slide of my portion of the presentation, that you can request that information, request posters if you need posters. And last, I get a lot of questions about this, about how do we display the posters in virtual events. The And Justice for All posters that I'm referring to, the text on those posters is the non-discrimination statement. So it's the same thing when you post the non-discrimination statement in a written material or on your website. It's fulfilling the same requirement as posting the And Justice for All poster in your physical space in your office So if you're having a virtual event, you can simply use the non-discrimination statement because it's the same information. And you can display that on a PowerPoint slide or two. You can put that up in a video and read it out loud in order to fulfill this requirement for a virtual event. Lastly, my contact information, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Jessica Creighton. I am a Senior Equal Opportunity Specialist at Nifa. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any technical assistance questions about this or any other civil rights matters. We also have a civil rights listserv where we provide updates and guidance in writing on civil rights matters, provide information about our webinars. If you want to join the listserv, or if you want to request some of those and Justice for All posters for your physical office spaces now, or when we go back into doing more physical in-person events after COVID, feel free to reach out to my colleague Lydia at this email address. And lastly, we do have equal opportunity trainings available at this website. It is just the NIFA website / equal opportunity resources. We have 3 trainings up there now that we are posting, that we've posted that we've already done. We will post this one, and as we continue to do those bi-monthly equal opportunity trainings, we will post those there. They are in PDF form with the PowerPoint slides in PDF form. You can open the PDF with the password equal opportunity and access a video recording of each training on the last slide, PowerPoint slide that's in those PDFs. There's a link that you can click on and actually view a complete recording of the training. Right now, there is a language access training up. There's a training on the civil rights compliance review process, and there is a training on the equitable distribution of program benefits, which has a lot of information on the collection, evaluation, tabulation of reg data, which we get a lot of questions on. It's a full hour training on reg data, so I encourage you to take a look at those trainings, utilize those resources, and then if you have follow-up questions, to reach out to me about them. And here I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Faith.
Great, thank you. My name is Faith Peppers, and I am Director of Nifa Communications. And I want to talk a little bit today about the new guidelines that have been put in place for using the Nifa identifier and a new logo that we call an identifier that's been developed for Nifa, because we want to make sure that you're using the correct version on your materials. So this is a required acknowledgement statement if the products you are producing is a part of a grant award that is above and beyond your Smith-Lever capacity funds that come to you through extension. So if you have a separate grant from NIFA that's paying for your specific project, then you need to include on publications, videos, any other products or websites, this statement. And of course, you would fill in the blanks there, but we need to make sure that that's there in addition to the non-discrimination statement. In addition, all publications or other materials, except for those that are published articles or papers in journals, should also contain the disclaimer statement that says that the opinions of your paper or article are your own opinions and do not reflect the view of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I'm going to give you a link when I finish that will take you to all of these materials, and will also give you a link to these guidelines where you can download them directly from the website. So the guidelines, The new guidelines that are governing use the Nifa identifier include these: the integrity of the identifier in all uses, and you can't add anything to it. You can subtract from it. It is allowable for you to use only the square USDA identifier if there isn't enough room for you to include the complete Nifa identifier. To maintain clear identification, you should always use the identifier so that it appears proportionately and it's isolated from other elements. So what that means is you shouldn't have the Nifa identifier on top of a graphic or vice versa. If you use it and there are graphics around it or color bars, there must be white space allowed around the Nifa identifier so that it is set apart from what is around it or underneath it. And when you use it in conjunction with other symbols like your university logo or the 4-H emblem, it should always have equal placement and be of equal size. And never enlarge the PNG or JPEG files beyond 100%, or they will start to disintegrate. To give you a little bit of a better idea of what this looks like, I've included just a sample. This, of course, is from the Ag Marketing Service and not NIFA, but it will give you just a picture, an idea of what these new identifiers look like. And compared to the former identifier that we had, the big change that you would look for to know if you have the updated version or the older version is that National Institute of Food and Agriculture will be on top of U.S. Department of Agriculture. In the former version, U.S. Department of Agriculture was on the top with the agency on the bottom. So that's your first key that you're looking at an old or a new version of the logo. And you can use it so that it's completely white on a different color background. So they gave you a sample of that here so you can see exactly what that looks like. In addition to the new identifier, they've also outlined the preferred colors for use with the identifier. The logo requirements and colors are available for you online if you need the complete guidelines. When I share the link with you momentarily, it will also lead you to the complete guidelines. And these are the two main colors that make up the identifier. And if you do your own printing, these are PMS numbers that you will need to make sure that you're getting the correct numbers. If you work through a publications office on campus, then you would want to share these numbers with them so that they're sure they're using the correct numbers when they're doing printing for you. So the final tip I'm going to give you about what to include on your materials is give your Extension Communications Office my contact information if they don't have it already. If there are any questions, if they need help, if the identifier samples that we have online aren't working for them, we are happy to work with them one-on-one and help them as we can. So please feel free to share my information with them and let them know that we're here to work with them in any way they need our help. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some questions going on over in the Q&A, so I am going to ask our presenters to help us to respond to a few of those. We have provided some of the responses in the chat already. So Jessica, I just want to make sure that you covered this. I think you did, but I'm going to ask it again. Does the non-discrimination statement need to be on print print items for internal audiences, like staff training webinars?
The question was about internal materials. No, it does not.
Okay. Okay, and if that person that typed it needs any more clarification, please type and let us know. Okay.
And Suzanne, just so you know, because I'm not sure what you're seeing, I do have you live right now. I think I can only put one person live, so you're
I'm the host.
viewable to everyone. Just FYI.
Great. Okay. The next question is either to Jessica, or I know her supervisor is also on. How would a 4-H know if someone has LEP or disability accommodations if that information isn't asked? If we should ask, what verbiage is preferred by USDA?
So you should not ask about someone's disability status. If you are communicating with someone and they appear to have significant issues communicating with you in English, you can let them know that interpretation and translation services are available free of charge. If they want that, the purpose of the notification is to let you know, to let individuals know that those accommodations and language access services are available. And so then it is up to the individual then to identify to the program, for example, in the case of a disability related need, that they do need an accommodation. And so they would let you know that.
Okay, thank you for answering that. There was a question on what was the poster number mentioned, and so we did type in the chat box AD475A, so just making sure that everyone saw that response. People have also been asking if they will receive this information by way of email. So I actually typed in where the training is available, that website that Jessica shared along with the password. So we will get that posted, and then you can download these materials. Jessica, this is for you as well. What are your thoughts about 4-H volunteers using the non-discrimination statement on their virtual 4-H club programming?
What are my thoughts about using the non-discrimination statement on virtual programming?
Yes, their virtual 4-H club programming.
I think I covered this in my presentation, but I don't know if I'm not understanding the question completely, that it should be used. And the non-discrimination statement can be displayed and or read out loud as a part of that virtual programming.
Okay, we're getting a few comments about feedback. So Jessica and Faith, maybe just make sure when one of us is talking, we all have our mics off. So thank you. I think so far this is the last question that we have so far. What about social media? What are best practices? So this is kind of general. Maybe Faith, I'm not sure if you want to take that.
For social media best practices, you really should rely on the policies and procedures from your individual institution. And we don't really issue any social media guidelines for our partners. You have to follow whatever your institution says.
Okay, we got two more questions that I think go together. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to answer this. We might need more information. It says volunteers have to do it, question mark, not just staff. And so I'm thinking they're still asking about that non-discrimination statement. Back to that other question. I may need more information from who typed that.
Yeah, I mean, I can partially respond. The purpose of the non-discrimination statement is to provide notification to anyone who participates in or benefits from a federally funded activity. So it's not necessarily about who provides the non-discrimination statement, as it is that a participant in a program or activity needs to be notified of their rights. So there are a lot of different ways to do that depending on how you structure your program. It can be something that is, just a standard part of any virtual programming that is given to volunteers to hand out, when they do programming or to add to their presentations. It can be somehow, if an ongoing program, that there's a standardized way of notifying program participants at the beginning of their involvement, like for an ongoing club, if there's some way that participants are notified at the beginning of their involvement in that club. So I'm not saying that the volunteers have to do it, but the participants have to receive that notification.
Okay, great. I think you answered it because they responded back saying that they wanted clarification if volunteers have the responsibility to share that statement in a virtual setting. So I think you answered that. Okay, back to the other list. When families enroll in 4-H and agree, is the additional programming considered internal to the system? For example, are 4-H clubs considered internal? Jessica, I'm not sure if we can answer this without a little bit more detail.
I don't think that a participant in a 4-H club is internal. When I think of internal, I think of employees to the extension program and communications that are going on with employees and not participants. That said, I think that you could notify individuals at the beginning of their participation in an ongoing activity.
Okay, if you still need more clarification, please let us know. Okay, this one's for Faith. What expectations are there for use of statements and USDA branding on social media?
Normally, we ask that you connect to us in some way if you are receiving funding. It's helpful when we are seeking funding for our base programs if there's social media content that connects your programs to USDA. Not everybody necessarily makes that connection between 4-H and USDA. So anytime that you can mention that you are funded through USDA or supported with funding from USDA, and if you can get as specific as to say USDA Nifa or tag us in your social media. Right now, we only have a social media presence on Twitter and LinkedIn, but we're in the process of very quickly adding a digital communication specialist to our staff. So we hope to be able to expand that over the next few months. So if you can tag us or use hashtag Nifa Impacts, all one word, then we'll be sure and see it and help share it. But it also helps for your constituents, your congressmen, your decision makers, the parents, to make that connection. But there's no requirement. We just ask you nicely to please do that when the opportunity allows.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, this one is for you. Must these statements be displayed in automated systems such as 4-H online enrollment systems?
frankly, I'm not sure that I know enough about the 4-H online enrollment systems to answer that question. I think that the regulation provides guidance in terms of websites and electronic communications like that, and websites, in that you can have that smaller statement kind of as a standard part of your web page, and it can link to the full statement elsewhere. So I would imagine that an enrollment site would be somewhat similar, where you would want to have that if participants are accessing that enrollment site, you would want to have that one-liner at the bottom that hyperlinks to the full statement.
Okay, Drenda Williams is going to come on and answer as part of that too.
Yes, hello everyone. Again, Drenda Williams, the Director of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights. I just wanted to also state as a reminder, if the online system is asking for things that are not required of USDA, you probably want to reach out to us to make sure before you put our logo or non-discrimination on the discrimination statement on there, just to make sure that it complies with what USDA's civil rights policies are.
Okay, great questions. It's very helpful. Let's see, Jessica, back to you again. Should we be sending the non-discrimination statement out to all youth and families at the beginning of the 4-H year?
I think that would be a good way to do it. I think if you have a closed group of participants, in other words, you're going to have several activities and events at which you know this is the group of people that's going to be there and there aren't going to be any additional people, you could certainly do it that way with the initial information.
Okay, we got clarification a little bit on the 4-H online system, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to answer this. I'm just letting everyone know. We can certainly get back to you. But they are letting us know that it's a private company, and state 4-H programs purchase contracts with them. Does that mean each state has to somehow add their own statement? Again, we might need to take time to answer this, Jessica or Drenda. I'm not sure if you want to provide any thoughts right now.
What is the question? That because they're run by state?
So it's a private company that each state invests into. So I think they're asking does each state then need to go back and work with that private company to somehow add their own non-discrimination statement or work with them on the logo?
And that's why I was saying, since it's different by state, and again, this is Drenda Williams, we would need to see what you're asking in the questionnaire to be completely able to tell if it complies with USDA civil rights laws and regulations. So if you're wanting to use that, we ask that you send us the entire questionnaire that you're asking participants so that we can make an accurate evaluation.
Sorry, I'm catching up on the chat. Will USDA Nifa be conducting any 4-H civil rights reviews in the future? A couple of years back, a good number of states had reviews, but then stopped. Jessica or Drenda?
We are conducting civil rights compliance reviews of extension programs as a whole. And again, your civil rights contact at your statewide extension program would know more about that. And the civil rights listserv is a place where we kind of disseminate some information about that. We are doing those civil rights compliance reviews. The 4-H is a part of that review. It's not separate, so it's a part of the overall extension program review.
Okay. Is there a place where they can find what demographic information USDA Nifa supports collecting? And I know, Jessica, you mentioned this, but I'll let you mention it again.
Yes, there is a whole hour-long training on that available on our website at that link that was provided. So definitely take a look at that.
Okay, are we saying that we should be co-branding with the USDA logo with our university logo for all of our Smith Lever funded programs? So Faith, I think this goes to you. Should they be?
I think it only applies to publications, but let me double check on that for you, and I will get an answer for you. Hopefully I can find it before we finish asking questions, but I think it's only those specific items, but let me check.
Okay, there's been a couple of side comments. It looks like they're asking us, just let the whole audience know to possibly work with 4-H program leader working group, maybe, and get clarification on the 4-H online registration max piece. So we're happy to do that and to follow up. Next question, can there be a follow-up training on questions we shouldn't ask when collecting information on participants and how those questions should be asked? Examples: gender, race, ethnicity. So Jessica, I think this goes back to the training that's available.
Yeah, that's in the training if you're asking about like reg specific data. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just scanning questions, making sure we've got these covered. Someone has asked who they should send forms for review.
Yeah, and Suzanne, this is Drenda. I think I see the question. I think we can work together. I know you're already working with the working group, and if we can get some clarification on the types of questions that they're asking in its entirety, so that way we can make a decision on the use of the non-discrimination statement and the logo.
Yeah, so great suggestion. So program leaders, if you can funnel your questions through the 4-H program leader working group or ECOP 4-H, that would be perfect. And then we can work with them on getting more of your questions answered. I can't see who's typing in the chat box, so just an FYI, it's all anonymous. So I'm not sure who is typing these questions. So. So far, we're caught up on questions, but I'm just pausing for a little bit longer here, make sure.
I can answer the question now. Looking at the guidelines, it does say that you should use the acknowledgement of USDA funding for competitive or capacity grants or initiatives supported by Nifa. So you should acknowledge the funding when you're using Smith Lever funding. So if it's something that's completely county funded or state funded or a project outside the scope of your normal daily work, that may be different, but for things that are using that Smith Lever funding, you should identify USDA Nifa as a supporter.
Great, glad you had time to answer that. The next one is for Jessica. I'll have you answer this one perhaps. Do you address the issue in the training when our university or state has more protected classes stated in their non-discrimination statement than USDA Nifa?
So yeah, the answer to that is if you have state or local laws that have additional non-discrimination laws, you can add that to your non-discrimination statement. If you have written assurances of non-discrimination with subrecipients, you can also add additional bases to that if those additional bases are based in state and local law. So some states do have, some states and some localities, for example, some cities and counties and things like that, do have additional non-discrimination laws that have additional protected characteristics. And so if you are subject to those laws, you certainly can add that to your non-discrimination statement.
Okay, we're getting asked for that link again, where the reg data is. I'm going to type it back in here. It's at that same place that we typed above along with the password.
I'm sorry, Suzanne, I think, was that a question for me? I didn't hear the last thing you said.
No, sorry, I was just talking out loud, answering. They had wondering where the reg collection guidance what training was, so I just retyped it into the chat, Jessica, and gave them that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I missed the last thing you said, and I was like, was that?
Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. So, okay, we are at a lull for a minute here with questions, but let's see. Again, I'm just going to take this silence to remind you that we are happy to work with 4-H Program Leaders Working Group and 4-H ECOP. Like Drenda said, we want to get these questions answered for you. So as much as we can condense those and get those in, we will certainly help to provide responses to that. I'm going to give it maybe one more minute. Okay, I think those questions that we are publishing, we already answered, so we're just. Okay, well, it's Friday afternoon. We appreciate all of you being with us today. I hope we were able to answer quite a few of your questions. Like we promised, we will have follow-up. Please do check out those websites and those trainings. And then again, we are all available to you. We're happy to answer your questions anytime that you may have. And I just want to say a huge thanks to Jessica, Faith, and Drenda for helping to put this on today. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.